Part 1. The distress beacon screamed through the void, and Jake Carson didn't hesitate. His salvage vessel changed course immediately, engines burning hard toward the dying ship. Out here in the frontier belt, you helped whoever needed it. That was the rule. The only rule that mattered. The alien craft tumbled slowly, venting atmosphere from a dozen ruptures. Jake matched its rotation and extended his docking collar. The metal groaned as the seal locked. He grabbed his repair kit and cycled through the airlock. Inside, emergency lighting painted everything red. A Velen woman floated unconscious near the navigation console, her silver skin pale with shock. Two small figures clung to her, their eyes wide with fear. Twins. They couldn't have been more than 8 cycles old in human years. "It's okay," Jake said, keeping his voice calm. "I'm here to help." The twins didn't speak. They just stared at him with those enormous, violet eyes. Jake secured the woman first, checking her vitals. Alive, but barely. He pulled an oxygen mask from his kit and fitted it over her face. Then he turned to the ship itself. The damage was catastrophic. Main power offline, life support failing. Hull integrity at 20% and dropping. Any normal person would have called it a loss and evacuated them to safety. Jake wasn't normal. He moved through the ship like a man possessed, his hands working faster than thought. Rerouting power conduits, patching hull breaches with quick seal foam. Bypassing fried circuits. The Velen systems were different from human tech, but engineering was engineering. Metal was metal. Energy followed the same laws everywhere in the galaxy. The twins followed him, silent as ghosts. They watched every move he made, their small hands occasionally offering him tools before he even asked for them. Smart kids. "Your mother?" Jake asked as he welded a support beam. The girl twin nodded. The boy pointed to a broken display panel. Jake understood. Their father wasn't on the ship, maybe dead, maybe somewhere else. Either way, these kids and their mother were alone out here. 2 hours passed, then 4. Jake's fingers bled inside his gloves. His shoulders screamed with exhaustion. But slowly, impossibly, the ship began to respond. Lights flickered on. The hull stopped groaning. Life support hummed back to life with a sound like a grateful sigh. The woman stirred. Her eyes opened, focusing on Jake with difficulty. She saw him covered in grease and blood, saw her children safe beside him, saw her dying ship somehow breathing again. She tried to speak, but no words came, just tears streaming down her silver cheeks. Jake helped her sit up. "Take it easy, you're safe now." The twins pressed close to their mother, but they kept looking back at Jake. Something shifted in their expressions, something that made Jake's chest feel strange. "The ship will hold," he said. "I've set course for Vega Station. 3 days at current speed. You'll make it." The woman gripped his wrist. Her strength surprised him. "Stay," she whispered in broken standard. "Please." Part 2. Jake tried to pull away gently, but the woman's grip remained firm despite her weakness. The twins had moved closer now, flanking him on either side. The girl twin touched his arm with her small hand, and the boy twin did the same on the other side. "I've got my own ship to get back to," Jake said. "You're safe now. The repairs will hold until you reach the station." The woman shook her head slowly. Pain flickered across her features, and Jake realized she was more injured than he'd initially thought. He ran a medical scanner over her, and the readout made his stomach drop. Internal bleeding. Radiation damage from the reactor breach. She had days at most. Maybe hours. The children, she said, her voice barely audible. Lyra and Kale. No family. No home now. Jake felt ice spreading through his veins. He looked at the twins. Really looked at them. They stared back with a knowledge far beyond their years. They already understood what was happening to their mother. "There are services on Vegas Station," Jake started, but the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "They will be separated," the woman said. "Sent to different sectors. Velen orphans, they have no value to your Commonwealth." She wasn't wrong. Jake had seen it before. Alien children shuffled through bureaucratic systems, lost in facilities that didn't understand their needs, their culture, their biology. Most didn't survive to adulthood. "I'm not exactly parent material," Jake said, trying to find an escape from the situation unfolding before him. The girl twin, Lyra, tilted her head. "You fixed our home when it was broken. You can fix anything." Her standard was perfect, touched with only the slightest melodic accent. The boy Kale nodded in agreement but remained silent. Jake ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of grease. "Look, I live on a salvage ship. I spend months alone in deep space picking through wreckage." "It's no life for kids. Better than no life at all," the woman said. She coughed, and silver blood speckled her lips. "I am Saris. I was a navigator before the war. Their father died defending our colony world. We fled, but my ship, it was damaged in ways I could not repair." Jake felt the walls closing in. He'd been alone for 6 years, ever since the incident on Arcturus Prime. Alone was safe. Alone meant you couldn't lose anyone else. But these kids were looking at him like he was their last hope in a universe that had already taken everything from them. "I need to think," Jake said finally. "Let me finish stabilizing the ship." He retreated to the engine room, but the twins followed. They didn't speak, just watched as he worked. Jake tried to ignore them, focusing on rerouting the secondary power couplings, but their presence filled the small space. "Why do you help people you don't know?" Kale asked suddenly. His voice was soft, curious. Jake paused in his work. "Because someone has to." "But you get nothing from it," Lyra added. "Your ship's logs show you've responded to 17 distress calls in the past year. You've never claimed salvage rights or asked for payment." Jake turned to face them. "You accessed my ship's computer?" The twins exchanged a glance. "We thought we should know who you are," Lyra said, "in case we needed to trust you." Smart and cautious, they'd been through hell and learned to be careful. Jake couldn't fault them for that. "I help because it's the right thing to do," he said quietly. "The universe is hard enough without people making it worse." "Then help us," Kale said simply. "Please." Jake wanted to refuse, wanted to explain all the reasons why he was the wrong person for this. But before he could speak, alarms shrieked through the ship. He bolted back to the cockpit, the twins right behind him. The sensors showed 3 vessels approaching fast. The whole configuration was unmistakable. Krell raiders. Pirates who preyed on disabled ships in the frontier belt. Sarah struggled to sit up, her face gray with pain. "They've been following us for days. They want the nav data in my ship's core, colony coordinates, refugee routes." Jake's mind raced. His salvage ship wasn't armed for combat. This Velen vessel barely had functioning shields. They were sitting prey. "Can you fly?" he asked the twins. They both nodded. "Then get to my ship." "Prepare it for emergency separation." "What about you?" Lyra asked. Jake was already pulling access panels off the weapons console. "I'm going to give them something to think about." "Go, now." For once, they didn't argue. They moved with surprising speed, pulling their mother between them. Jake heard the airlock cycle as he worked frantically to restore power to the ship's defensive systems. The Krell vessels were closing fast, 3 against 1. And Jake's one was barely functional. He smiled grimly. The universe had a sick sense of humor. He'd spent 6 years running from connection, from responsibility, from the pain of caring about anyone. Now he was about to die protecting 3 strangers he'd known for less than 6 hours. The first Krell ship opened fire. Part 3, The shields held barely. Jake threw power from life support to the defensive grid, watching the energy levels fluctuate wildly. The Velen ship's systems were cobbled together from his repairs, held by determination and quick seal foam. One solid hit would tear through the hull like paper. Through the comm channel, Jake heard Lyra's voice from his salvage ship. "We're ready to separate. Get over here." "Not yet," Jake muttered, his fingers flying across the navigation console. He'd spotted something in the Krell attack formation. A weakness. The raiders flew in a tight triangle, concentrating their fire. Professional. Efficient. But that efficiency created a blind spot. If Jake could position the Velen ship just right, use its damaged hull as a screen while he triggered a controlled reactor pulse, it was insane. The kind of move that got you killed 90 times out of 100. Jake had always been good at beating the odds. He fired the maneuvering thrusters, spinning the ship into a chaotic tumble. The Krell adjusted their formation, trying to maintain firing solutions. That was the mistake. They'd assumed he was disabled, desperate, running blind. Jake activated the emergency core dump, but instead of venting the plasma into space, he routed it through the damaged starboard nacelle. The effect was like turning the ship into a giant-shaped charge. Energy erupted in a blinding cascade. The lead Krell vessel flew directly into it. Its shields overloaded instantly, and the hull began to glow white-hot. The ship broke apart, debris spiraling in all directions. The other two raiders scattered, their tight formation destroyed. Jake didn't waste the opening. He hit the thrusters hard, accelerating toward his own ship. The docking collar was still extended, a lifeline across the void. 30 seconds, he said into the comm. "Be ready to punch it the moment I'm through." Weapons fire chased him, burning past the hull. One shot clipped the docking collar, and the entire structure shuddered. Jake could see the metal beginning to tear. 20 seconds. The second Krell ship swung around, trying to cut him off. Its weapons charged, targeting his engines. 15 seconds. Jake killed the main drive and fired reverse thrusters. The Velen ship lurched backward. The Krell shot went wide, missing by meters. Before they could adjust, Jake reactivated the main drive at full burn. 10 seconds. The docking collar was failing, pieces breaking away. Jake could see his ship through the viewport. So close. Saris lay strapped in the co-pilot seat, her silver skin almost gray. The twins worked the navigation console with small, quick hands. 5 seconds. Jake dove through the airlock as the collar finally gave way. Metal shrieked. Atmosphere vented explosively. He slammed into the far wall of his ship's receiving bay and felt something crack in his ribs. "Go! Go! Go!" he gasped. The engines responded instantly. Lyra and Kale had anticipated his command, had the drive already spinning up. The salvage ship leaped forward as the Krell fired again. The shot passed through the space they'd occupied a heartbeat before. Jake dragged himself to the cockpit, every breath sending spikes of pain through his chest. The twins vacated the pilot seat without a word, and Jake dropped into it. His hands found the controls by instinct. The Velen ship drifted behind them, a dying hulk. The two remaining Krell vessels closed on it like scavengers. Let them. The nav data Saris had mentioned was already wiped. Jake had purged the core during his repairs, standard salvage procedure. "They're not following," Kale observed, watching the sensors. Jake nodded, wincing. They got what they wanted. A salvage claim. Not worth chasing us for revenge. He set course away from the frontier belt toward the inner systems. Safer space. Civilized space. Places with hospitals and authorities and orphanages. The thought made his chest ache worse than the broken ribs. Sari stirred in the co-pilot seat. Her eyes opened, struggling to focus. "You saved us." "Just following my own rules," Jake said. "Help whoever needs it." The children, Saris whispered. Promise me. Don't let them disappear into your system's machinery. Jake wanted to promise, wanted to tell her everything would be fine. But he'd made promises before and watched them turn to ash. I'll find them a good placement, he said instead. Somewhere they'll be together. Lyra appeared at his shoulder, her small face grave. She's dying. We can feel it. Our people. We have a connection to family. It's fading. Captain stood on the other side, equally solemn. She wants you to take us. We want you to take us. You don't know me, Jake said roughly. I'm not some hero. I'm just a guy who fixes broken things. Then fix this, Lyra said simply. Saris reached out, her hand trembling. Jake took it without thinking. Her grip was weak now, barely there. They chose you, she breathed. The moment they saw you work, Velen children, they know. They feel truth in people. In you, they felt home. Her eyes closed. The medical monitors began to alarm. Jake started to rise, to grab medical supplies. But Saris held on with surprising strength. Promise me, she insisted. Promise you'll try. The twins watched him, silent. Waiting, Jake thought about his empty ship, his empty years, the walls he'd built to keep the universe at arm's length. He thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Then he looked at two small children who'd lost everything and were somehow still standing, still hoping, still brave enough to ask a stranger to be their family. I promise, Jake heard himself say. I'll try. Sarah smiled. Her hand went slack in his. The monitors flatlined. The twins didn't cry. They simply moved closer to Jake, one on each side, and stood there in the soft glow of the cockpit lights while their mother's body grew still. After a long moment, Cale spoke quietly. Thank you for not lying to her. Jake didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know what to say to any of this. Part 4. The funeral customs of the Velen people required returning the body to open space. Jake helped Lyra and Cale prepare their mother, wrapping her in the traditional silver shroud they found in the Velen ship's cargo before it was destroyed. The twins moved through the ritual with practiced precision, singing in their native language. The melody was haunting, filled with harmonies that shouldn't have been possible from just two voices. Jake stood at the airlock controls waiting for their signal. When Lyra nodded, he opened the outer door. Saris drifted into the void, her shroud catching the light of a distant star. Within seconds, she was gone, just another piece of the infinite dark. The twins returned to the cockpit without speaking. Jake had set the autopilot for New Olympus, a core world with proper facilities. He'd made the promise, but he had no idea how to keep it. Social services would ask questions, run background checks, discover his past, discover why he'd been alone in deep space for 6 years. We should eat something, Jake said, uncomfortable with the silence. I've got ration packs. They're not great, but they're nutritious. We're not hungry, Lyra said. She sat in the navigator's chair, her legs dangling well above the floor. We need to talk about what happens next. Together, they looked at Jake with identical expressions of calm determination. You promised our mother you'd try, Lyra continued. But you don't want us here, we can tell. Jake started to protest, but Cal cut him off. It's okay. We understand. You're afraid. The word hit Jake like a physical blow. I'm not afraid of anything. Yes, you are, Lyra said gently. You're afraid of caring about people. Afraid they'll leave. Afraid you'll fail them. You accessed my personal logs too? Jake asked, anger rising to cover the discomfort. We didn't need to, Cale said. You're like us. You've lost people. It changed you, made you want to be alone. Jake gripped the armrests of his chair, knuckles white. You're 8 years old. You don't know anything about me. We know enough, Lyra said. She stood, walking over to Jake's station. Arcturus Prime, 6 years ago. You were part of a rescue team. Something went wrong. Jake felt his throat close. He hadn't spoken about Arcturus Prime to anyone. Hadn't let himself think about it if he could help it. 43 people, Kale added softly. You tried to save them from a failing colony dome, but the structure collapsed early. You were the only survivor. Stop, Jake said. His voice was rough. You blamed yourself, Lyra continued, relentless, even though the structural data was wrong. Even though you couldn't have known. You left everything behind, became a salvager, started helping every distress call you found, like you could balance the scales. I said, stop, Jake repeated, louder. The twins fell silent. But they didn't move away. They just watched him with those enormous violet eyes, filled with understanding that children their age shouldn't possess. How do you know all this? Jake finally asked. Velen children develop telepathic abilities early, Lyra explained. We don't read thoughts exactly. We feel emotions. See memories connected to strong feelings. When you touched our mother, when you made your promise, your mind opened. We saw Jake felt violated, exposed. But beneath the anger, something else stirred. Relief. They knew the worst of him and hadn't run screaming. Then you know I'm the last person who should be responsible for anyone, he said quietly. We know you're the only person who understands, Kale corrected. You know what it's like to lose everything, to feel like you failed, but you're still here, still fighting, still helping people. That doesn't make me father material. We don't need a father, Lyra said. We had a father. He was brave and strong, and died protecting people he loved. We'll always honor him. We need someone who won't give up on us, Cal added. Someone who knows how to fix broken things. Someone who keeps his promises even when they're hard. Jake looked at them, these strange, solemn children who saw too much and understood too well. And if I fail you, if I can't be what you need, then you fail, Lyra said simply. But at least you'll have tried. That's more than most people would do. A proximity alarm interrupted the conversation. Jake checked the sensors and felt his stomach drop. 2 ships were approaching on an intercept course. Military vessels. Commonwealth Patrol. This is Commonwealth Patrol, vessel intrepid to unidentified salvage ship. A voice crackled over the comm. You're showing irregular transponder codes and following an unusual flight path. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Jake's hand hovered over the comm switch. He could explain everything. Turn the twins over to proper authorities. Walk away clean. Lyra and Kale watched him. Waiting. Not pleading, not arguing. Just waiting to see what choice he'd make. Jake thought about Arcturus Prime. About 43 people he couldn't save. About 6 years of running from everything that mattered. He thought about 2 children who'd chosen to trust him when they had every reason not to. He pressed the comm. This is the salvage vessel Carson's run. We've just conducted a rescue operation in the Frontier Belt. I have 2 miners aboard whose legal guardian recently deceased, requesting medical and social services support at New Olympus. A pause. Then, copy that, Carson's run. What's your relationship to the miners? Jake looked at the twins. Lyra smiled slightly. Kale nodded. I'm their guardian, Jake said. By the mother's dying request and the children's choice. Another pause, longer this time. That's going to require significant documentation and legal review, Carson's run. Stand by. Understood, Jake said. He cut the channel and turned to the twins. This is going to be complicated. There will be interviews, evaluations, background checks. They're going to dig into every corner of my life. Will they find something that disqualifies you? Lyra asked. No, Jake admitted. The Arcturus Prime incident was ruled accidental. I left rescue work voluntarily. My record is clean. Then we'll be fine, Kale said with certainty. Jake wasn't so sure, but he didn't argue. Instead, he began preparing for the boarding inspection, gathering documentation, and securing the ship. The twins helped without being asked, moving through the vessel with growing familiarity. They were learning its systems, its rhythms, making it their home. Despite everything, despite his fears and doubts, Jake felt something shift inside his chest, something that had been frozen for 6 years beginning to thaw. Maybe this was a terrible mistake. Maybe he'd failed them spectacularly. But maybe, just maybe, broken things could be fixed. Even people. Part 5. The evaluation process took 3 weeks. Jake and the twins were transferred to New Olympus, where Commonwealth Social Services put them through an exhaustive series of interviews, psychological assessments, and legal reviews. Jake sat through hours of questioning, explaining the rescue, Saris's final request, his background, his capabilities as a guardian. The hardest part was watching Lyra and KL be interviewed separately. They disappeared behind closed doors with child psychologists and social workers, and Jake had to fight every instinct not to storm in and demand to be present. But the twins always emerged calm, unfazed, reporting that the questions were simple and the people kind. "They ask us if we're sure," Lyra told him after the 5th session. "If we really want to stay with you. If we feel safe." "What do you tell them?" Jake asked. "The truth," KL said simply. "That you're the only person in the universe who promised to try. That's enough." On the 18th day, Jake met with Director Helen Morris, the Commonwealth official overseeing the case. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Your background check came back clean," she said, reviewing a datapad. "No criminal record, exemplary service record before you resigned from rescue operations. Financial stability through your salvage work. No red flags." Jake waited for the other shoe to drop. "However," Director Morris continued, "there are concerns about your lifestyle. You operate alone in deep space, sometimes for months at a time. That's not an appropriate environment for children." "I can change that," Jake said quickly. "Take shorter contracts. Work closer to inhabited systems. Whatever it takes." Director Morris studied him over her datapad. "The children's telepathic evaluation shows something interesting. They have an unusually strong bond forming with you." The psychologist noted, "It's similar to the family bonds Velen people develop, but accelerated. Unusual for non-blood relations." "Is that a problem?" "It's unprecedented," she admitted, "but not necessarily negative. The children appear emotionally stable, well-adjusted considering their trauma, and genuinely attached to you. They've made it clear they won't accept any other placement." Jake felt hope rising in his chest. "So you'll approve the guardianship?" Director Morris set down her datapad. "I'm going to be honest with you. Normally, we'd place alien orphans with families of their own species or in specialized facilities. But there are only 47 Velen refugees in Commonwealth space, and none are in a position to take on children. The alternative would be separating Lyra and Kale into different institutional programs. That would destroy them," Jake said. "I know," Director Morris replied, "which is why I'm approving your guardianship on a provisional basis. You'll have quarterly check-ins for the first year. Any sign that the children are being neglected or endangered, and we'll revisit this decision. Understood?" Jake nodded, not trusting his voice. "They're lucky to have found you, Carson," Director Morris said, her stern expression softening slightly. "Don't make me regret this." When Jake emerged from the office, the twins were waiting in the corridor. They looked up at him with matching expressions of hope, barely contained. "We can stay?" Lyra asked. "You can stay," Jake confirmed. Captain launched himself forward, wrapping his arms around Jake's waist. Lyra followed a heartbeat later. Jake stood frozen for a moment, then slowly, awkwardly, put his arms around both of them. "Thank you," Lyra whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Jake said. "I have no idea what I'm doing." "None of us do," Kale pointed out, his voice muffled against Jake's jacket. "That's the whole point. The next 2 months were a learning experience. Jake rented a small apartment on New Olympus while he figured out his next move. The twins needed stability, education, routine, things Jake hadn't thought about in years. Lyra threw herself into learning everything about human culture and technology. She devoured books, watched educational programs, asked endless questions. Captain was quieter, more introspective, but Jake noticed he had a gift for engineering. The boy could look at any mechanical system and instinctively understand how it worked. They were brilliant, both of them, and they were healing. Slowly, the haunted look in their eyes began to fade. Jake struggled with the basics, cooking real food instead of heating ration packs, making sure they did their homework, setting appropriate bedtimes. He felt perpetually out of his depth, but he learned. He asked for help when he needed it, attended parenting classes specifically designed for cross-species guardianship, connected with other human parents of alien children. Slowly, impossibly, they became a family. One evening, 3 months after the guardianship was approved, Jake found Lyra and Kyle on the apartment balcony, staring up at the stars. "Missing space?" he asked, joining them. "Missing home," Lyra said quietly. "Our real home, the colony world." Before the war, Jake had learned about the Velen colony conflicts, a territorial dispute that had spiraled into violence, displacing thousands. Saris and her children had been running for months before Jake found them. "I'm sorry," he said, because there was nothing else to say. "It's not your fault," Kale said. "The universe is hard, you told us that." "But people don't have to make it harder," Lyra added, echoing Jake's own words back to him. "You taught us that too." Jake sat down beside them. "I've been thinking about our next move. My salvage work. It's good money, but unpredictable. I was looking into other options. There's a freight company that runs regular routes through the inner systems. Steady work. Steady schedule. We could get a bigger ship, one with proper quarters for you both." "You'd give up salvage work?" Lyra asked. "For us?" "For us," Jake corrected gently. "We're a crew now. We make decisions together." Captain looked thoughtful. "What if we helped with the salvage work? We're good with systems. We could handle repairs, assist with navigation, make it a family business." "You're too young," Jake started, then stopped. The twins were giving him identical looks of patient skepticism. "Okay, maybe not too young, but it's dangerous work." "So was fleeing a war," Lyra pointed out. "So was surviving in a dying ship. We're not fragile, Jake. We don't need you to protect us from everything. We need you to teach us how to be strong." Jake felt his throat tighten. "When did you two get so wise?" "We're Velen," Kale said with a small smile. "We're born annoying." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there was the frontier belt, with its dangers and opportunities. Somewhere out there were people who needed help. "We could do both," Jake said slowly. "Modified salvage work, shorter runs. Emergency response for nearby sectors, bring you both along, teach you the trade. When you're older, if you want, we expand the operation, make it legitimate." "Carson Family Salvage," Lyra said, testing the name. "I like it." "Carson and Associates," Kale countered. "More professional." They argued about it good-naturedly while Jake smiled. This wasn't the life he'd planned, wasn't the solitary existence he'd carved out after Arcturus Prime. It was better. A week later, Jake signed the papers on a larger vessel, a modified cargo hauler with proper living quarters and advanced repair facilities. The twins helped him move their belongings aboard, transforming the sterile metal spaces into something that resembled a home. On their first night in the new ship, Jake found them in the common area, working together on a project. They'd taken apart one of the navigation computers and were rebuilding it with improved efficiency. "Should I be worried that you're modifying critical systems?" Jake asked. "Probably," Lyra said cheerfully, not looking up from her work. "We'll put it back if it doesn't work," Cale added. Jake watched them for a moment, these strange children who'd chosen him, who'd refused to let him stay broken and alone. "Hey," he said quietly. They both looked up. "I'm glad you stayed," Jake said. "I'm glad you asked me to try." Lyra smiled. Capel nodded. They didn't need to say anything else. The ship's comm crackled to life, a distress signal broadcasting from a nearby sector. Someone in trouble. Someone who needed help. Jake looked at the twins. They were already moving toward their stations, quick and efficient. "Ready?" Jake asked. "Always," they said in unison. Jake set course toward the signal, toward danger and uncertainty and the endless possibility of space. Behind him, Lyra and Cale worked the navigation console together, their voices blending in quiet harmony. They were a crew. They were a family. And they were going to be just fine.